Hello, boys and girls. Oh, she's gone. This week we're heading back to a time where consoles were carved from oak and gameplay mattered more than graphics, as the FirstPlay team talks us through their favourite PS1 games.
My favourite game on PlayStation 1 is Tekken 3.
Round 1. Fight!
I didn't have a PlayStation 1, so I started to play Tekken 3 when I went to university. The first thing I remember is that it looked better than any fighter I'd ever seen before. It was proper 3D, and it wasn't blocky like Virtua Fighter, which I saw in the arcade. The key thing about the gameplay was it felt fluid, and the way that you could string combos together had a real back and forth tactical element to it, which I still don't really think have got any better in the Tekken series or in any other fighting. I did not play any other PS1 game as much as I played Tekken 3. We used to drive our flatmates insane, me and Matt Elliott, with the music. The menu music used to crash in, ka-jang, ka-jang, ka-jang. And I remember we once had a party, and before, oh God, we had a party at which we played Tekken, but it was early in the evening, so it wasn't as bad as it sounds. And before the party really got swinging, we had a match, and Matt perfected me in the first round, him with Paul and me with Law. And then I perfected him in the second round, and it sounds geeky maybe, but this was the battle for the title of the best Tekken player ever in the world, so it was quite important, and I actually won the third round, and to this day I am still the best Tekken player in the world. That's true.
I spent a lot of time kicking Nathan's backside on Tekken 3, but I think my favourite PS1 game would be Fear Effect 2 Retro Helix. The most memorable thing about Fear Effect 2 is the unzipped leather catsuits that all the female characters wear.
Ah, 2 kitties. I like kitties. Come play with me, kitty.
Because it was a prequel, it sort of developed the backstory of the characters that you come to love in the first game. And it kind of melds together this weird like sci-fi world with Chinese mythology and a bit of science as well, and it sort of all slots together far better than it should. It doesn't really have the right to work in the way that it does. I think one of the most impressive things about the game was the sound. It's full of echoing bullet chambers falling on the floor and sort of menacing sounds in the background of the aqueduct and things like that, and you never know what you're going to come up with next, and it just sounds really, really high tech. There's loads of things wrong with it. The controls are horrible, the shooting's really strange, but it's a hugely cinematic experience. In the same way that Uncharted is now, you're sort of part of the action. There's cutscenes where you're controlling your character running away from balls of fire and things like that. And it is sort of crass, it's over-sexualised, it's disgustingly bloody. But at the end of it, you come out of it and you feel like you have met these characters and you've been on this amazing adventure, and that's why I love it.
The camera?
Sorry, boys. This is private.
So we're underway.
My favourite PS1 game to this day is probably Soccer 97, which was the very first PlayStation 1 game I ever bought. It came with my console. If you compared it to like modern day football games, it would probably look terrible, but at the time I thought it was absolutely genius. It was the first at the time thing that felt properly like next gen, like football games being taken to the next level. I remember it had Alan Green on commentary, and every 3 seconds, if you did a foul, he'd shout, "He got the man, not the ball."
He took the man, not the ball.
The actual gameplay itself was quite basic. The goalies were amazing, but it was just a load of fun. My favourite thing about the game, I think for me, it's just that whole looking back, thinking it was better than it really is.
Team.
It's the best game on PlayStation 1. Actually, that's a lie. It's not the best game on PlayStation 1. I'm not going to sit there and say it's better than the things that came along later. But for me, I thought what it did at that time was genius.
4 failures.
My favourite PS1 game is Final Fantasy IX. It's definitely my favourite game on the PS1, and it's definitely one of my favourite Final Fantasies over Final Fantasy 7 and 8. So it's all kind of wooden airships and magic and swords, knights going off on noble quests and that kind of thing. And I love it because even though it had quite a cartoony style, it was so heartbreaking in terms of content and story. It still came on 4 discs, but it looked amazing, and the soundtrack was absolutely beautiful. And it's just, it's the perfect game because it touches on everything, and it's full of fun moments, just throwaway kind of really happy moments, and it's full of tragedy and full of bad things happening to people that you genuinely care about. And In all honesty, it was the last great Final Fantasy.
I, Raziel, was to suffer the fate of traitors and weaklings, to burn forever in the bowels of the Lake of the Dead.
My favourite game is Soul Reaver. It's an old PS1 game, probably one of the sort of second wave of games I bought when I first got my console. It's sort of a bit like a Lord of the Rings style vampire thing. Yeah, it's actually made by Amy Hennig, obviously does Uncharted now. And yeah, you play a vampire who is sort of cast into a pit for evolving faster than your master. You're sort of brought back by this kind of godlike power who says you've got to go and sort this guy out because he's messed the world up. Main things I remember are this sort of incredible atmosphere, very, very good music, very sort of swirly atmospheric kind of stuff, lots of chants, sort of vocal choir stuff. They had a sort of a level of kind of narrative class and storytelling that few games did have. The acting was really, really good.
I would choose oblivion over this existence.
The choice is not yours.
The story was nice. It was a completely fictional world. It wasn't based on anything at all that was around at the time. This felt like quite a mature sort of story. It felt classy and it felt like it was more than just a game. And yeah, so for that reason I still sort of remember it to this day.
Thanks guys, join us again next week when the team will be trying out their picks to see how they hold up in an age of 3D graphics, motion controls and unreasonably high expectations. Disappointment for the win!
Rush here.